Imagine just one question, one single question, that could really reshape how you think about your own happiness, maybe even your success.
That's a powerful way to start.
Well, today, in this deep dive, we're getting right into the first chapter of Arthur Schopenhauer's The Wisdom of Life.
A fascinating, if sometimes challenging read.
Absolutely. Our mission, let's say, is to really unpack Schopenhauer's foundational ideas about what actually makes life fulfilling. And we're starting with his breakdown of what he calls the fundamental blessings of life.
Yeah, this first chapter really sets the stage. He divides the core differences in how humans experience life into three basic categories.
Okay, so where does he begin? Does he just jump straight into his own framework?
Well, not quite. It's interesting. He actually references Aristotle first.
Mhm.
Aristotle's classic three types of blessings. Those from the outside world, those of the soul, and those of the body.
Right, that's a familiar philosophical starting point.
It is. But Schopenhauer, while he keeps that number three, he immediately sort of refined it. He thinks his categories get closer to what really drives our happiness or lack thereof.
Okay, so he takes Aristotle's structure but gives it his own spin. What are Schopenhauer's three then? What are these fundamental differences he sees?
So his first one, and he really stresses this is the most important, is number one, what a man is. He uses the term personality, but it's really broad.
Personality, like temperament, or more than that.
Oh, much more. For Schopenhauer, this includes health, physical strength, beauty, temperament, sure, but also moral character, intelligence, and even your education. It's the whole inner package, really.
Wow, okay, that's quite comprehensive. And he thinks this is the main thing.
Straight away, yes. He basically argues that these inherent qualities, what you are, have much more vital, more radical influence on your happiness than anything external, like way more than possessions or reputation.
That's a strong claim right off the bat. Does he back it up?
He does. He even brings in a quote from Metrodorus, who was a disciple of Epicurus. Metrodorus said, "The happiness we receive from ourselves is greater than that which we obtain from our surroundings."
Okay, so happiness from within beats happiness from without. That resonates.
Exactly. And Schopenhauer ties this directly to what he calls our inner constitution. This inner makeup is the immediate source of how we feel, satisfied or dissatisfied.
It's like our internal filter for the world.
Precisely. Think about it. The exact same event happens, but people react so differently. Why? Because, as Schopenhauer puts it, everyone lives in their own world, shaped by their unique ideas, feelings, and volitions. We only experience things through that internal lens.
That makes sense. You could have two people at the same party, one having the time of their life, the other miserable. Same external event, totally different internal experience.
Absolutely. He says the world each person lives in is primarily shaped by how they perceive it. What's dull for one person might be fascinating for someone with a different mind.
He has that example about poets, right? Like Goethe and Byron.
Yes. He suggests that a, let's say, less insightful reader might envy the events in a poet's life, thinking that's what made their poems great.
Instead of envying the poet's amazing imagination, the power to make something great out of maybe ordinary experiences.
Exactly that. The foolish reader envies the circumstances, not the genius that transformed them. It really puts the spotlight back on our internal capacity.
And temperament plays a big role here too, I imagine.
Huge. He gives the example of how someone melancholic might react to a setback with despair, while a sanguine person sees it as a challenge and someone phlegmatic barely notices. Same event, totally different subjective reality.
So every event needs the external thing, the object, but also the internal person experiencing it, the subject, and the subject's nature changes the whole equation.
Right, he uses this analogy of a beautiful landscape. If the weather is dull, or if you're looking at it through a distorted lens, like a bad camera obscura.
Oh, what now?
A camera obscura. It was like an early optical device. Basically, a dark box or room with a tiny hole light came through and projected an inverted image on the opposite wall. Point is, if the device is flawed, the image is poor, even if the scene outside is perfect.
Got it. So our consciousness is the camera, and if it's limited or dull, the world seems dull no matter how objectively interesting it might be.
That's the idea. And he argues we're fundamentally limited by our own consciousness. We can't really step outside of it.
That sounds a bit confining.
It is, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
He says external help can only go so far because you're always stuck within yourself. He uses the stage analogy.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a prince, a servant, whatever, different roles on the outside. But inwardly, They're all just poor players dealing with their own worries and limitations.
So rank, wealth, status, they just give you a different costume, essentially. But the actor inside is dealing with the same fundamental human stuff.
Pretty much. He argues those external differences don't necessarily create different levels of inner happiness or unhappiness. The core human struggles are shared.
That really levels the playing field, doesn't it?
It does. And because everything exists for us only in our consciousness, the nature of that consciousness is the most essential thing. He contrasts, like the world's pride and pleasure, as experienced by a fool in their dull consciousness, with Cervantes writing Don Quixote in prison. Cervantes' inner world transcended his grim reality.
So the subjective half ourselves is constant, while the objective half fate, events, is always changing.
That's his view, which means the overall character of our life tends to stay pretty consistent, despite external changes, because we remain largely the same. He compares it to animals. Each stays within its natural limits. Our potential for happiness is also largely set by our individuality, especially our mental powers.
So if someone just doesn't have great mental abilities, according to Schopenhauer, their potential for higher forms of happiness is limited, regardless of luck or wealth.
That's his rather stark conclusion, yes. He believes the highest, most enduring pleasures are those of the mind. If your mental capacity is inherently limited, you're kind of stuck with what he calls more basic, half-animal pleasures. Sensory stuff, maybe simple family life, common entertainments.
Ouch. That sounds quite deterministic.
It is. He even suggests education can only do so much if the underlying capacity isn't there. So for him, happiness really depends fundamentally on what we are, our individuality, what he calls our lot or destiny possessions, reputation that's secondary.
He quotes Goethe on this too, doesn't he? Something about personality being key.
Yes, from the West Östlicher Divan. Goethe basically says, whether you're down on your luck or riding high, you always come back to recognizing that your own personality is the ultimate factor in your happiness.
And you see echoes of this in common sayings, right? Like hunger is the best sauce.
Exactly. Or realizing youth and age cannot live together. Fundamental differences in being. Whereas, classic line, a healthy beggar is happier than an ailing king. Health, being part of what we are, trumps external status.
So what are the key personal advantages then, in his view?
He lists things like a quiet and cheerful temperament, a healthy body, a sound mind and a sound body, essentially a clear intellect, a moderate will, and a good conscience. These, he says, are things rank and wealth just can't buy.
It makes sense. He contrasts the intellectual person happy in solitude with the dull person bored amidst constant parties.
Right. Or a good-natured person finding contentment even when poor, versus a rich but greedy person who's always miserable. He thinks people with highly developed intellects actually find many common pleasures superfluous, maybe even annoying.
Like Socrates saying how many things he didn't need.
Precisely. Or Horace talking about living simply. Because personality is constant, always there, not dependent on luck, it has this absolute value, unlike external goods.
But what about time? Surely things like health and intellect decline with age.
Ah, yes, he addresses that. He acknowledges that time wears down physical and mental advantages. But crucially, he believes moral character remains untouched by time.
Interesting distinction.
And he suggests this might be why the other two categories, what we have and how others see us, seem relatively more important later in life, because they aren't eroding in the same way our physical or even sharp mental faculties might be.
Okay, so the internal stuff is innate, almost like a divine right, as he puts it, unchangeable.
Largely, yes. He sees these qualities as inherent, immutable, and inexorable doom. He quotes Goethe again, lines about our destiny being set at birth by the stars, something time cannot alter or escape.
Wow. So if we can't change our fundamental nature, what are we supposed to do? Just accept our lot?
Not exactly accept our lot passively. His point is our power lies in making the best use of the qualities we do have. We should pursue activities that suit our strengths, strive for the perfection we can achieve in those areas, and choose a life path, job, environment that fits our nature.
So it's about alignment, finding the right fit for who you are.
Exactly. He gives the example of a man with Herculean strength forced into sedentary work, or someone brilliant stuck doing manual labor. Both are miserable because their potential is thwarted. Undeveloped potential leads to unhappiness.
That makes a lot of sense. Find your niche and excel there.
Right. But he also warns against youthful overconfidence. Don't assume you have strengths you don't.
Good advice. And how does this relate to wealth?
He concludes this section by saying it's much wiser to focus on cultivating your health and your faculties, your mind, than just piling up money. though obviously you need the basics. But superfluous wealth. He thinks it adds little to happiness and can even bring worries.
And he has that image of the person just chasing money.
Yeah, like an ant ceaselessly gathering, but with a blank mind inside, unable to enjoy intellectual pleasures. So they try to fill the void with fleeting, expensive, sensual pleasures instead.
Like the rich kids squandering an inheritance out of boredom, trying to buy happiness because they lack inner resources.
Precisely. It's a stark picture of trying to compensate for inner poverty with external means, which he thinks is ultimately futile.
Okay, so that covers the first category, what a man is, in quite some depth. What about the other two? He deals with them more briefly. Yeah.
Much more briefly in this first chapter, yeah. The second category is two, what a man has. So property, possessions.
And he basically says everyone understands the value of that.
Pretty much. He acknowledges it's important, provides security and comfort, but says its value is so well known that he doesn't need to elaborate much here. His main focus is clearly on personality.
Got it. And the third one?
The third is three, how a man stands in the estimation of others. This covers reputation, honor, rank, fame. He calls this one more ethereal because it depends entirely on what other people think.
Which is notoriously fickle.
Exactly. He notes everyone strives for a good name, a good reputation. He thinks rank is mainly for state servants and fame is for a very select few.
Does he value reputation highly?
He calls reputation a priceless treasure and fame the golden fleece, so yes, he sees value. But he also clearly states that only a fool prefers rank to property. Possessions are more concrete.
Interesting. And he links possessions and reputation, doesn't he?
Yes, he mentions the connection between the second and third classes. He quotes Petronius, habes haberes,
Which means?
roughly. You will be had, or maybe better, if you have possessions, you will be regarded. Your wealth influences how people see you.
Ah, okay. And how others see you can maybe help you get more possessions too.
Right. The favor of others, your reputation, can sometimes open doors to acquiring what you want. So there's a kind of reciprocal relationship there.
Okay. So wrapping up this look at Chapter 1, Schopenhauer's main thrust is pretty clear, isn't it?
Absolutely. The core argument is that our inner being, our personality, in his broad sense, is overwhelmingly the most critical factor for our happiness. It just dwarfs the impact of external circumstances or what others think.
He sets up those three categories: what we are, what we have, and how others see us.
And leaves no doubt that the first one, what we are, is the foundation upon which everything else rests, for better or worse.
Yeah, it definitely forces you to reconsider things.
It really does. It prompts a very direct, maybe uncomfortable self-assessment.
Which leads us to a final thought for you listening. Thinking about Schopenhauer's perspective here, how much of your own energy in pursuing happiness is really focused on cultivating who you are internally versus, say, chasing what you have or managing what other people think of you?
It's a heavy question, but maybe a worthwhile one. Is it time for a shift in focus?
Something to ponder, definitely. And we certainly plan to dive into more of Schopenhauer's wisdom of life and related ideas in future discussions.